Hi guys. Hello. So good evening. Yeah, and as Darshan said, I'm Siddhant Chandra. So the flow for today's session would be I would introduce myself and give a brief background about myself, um, and explain a few things here and there, which would connect to the things that we would also be discussing later on in the presentation. Then we would do a very small warm-up exercise, which is an experiment for me for the first time as an observer and for you as a doer, and we will contemplate on that. We would then talk about two problems, one a very simple one and the other one is a very serious one. And I would emphasize on something there. And then there would be some discussion on the society essay on as to how to go about it based on our media checkpoint that we did. And the last one would be to initiate you guys into a flow exercise and a zone of genius exercise, which I'll talk about. And I'll also tell you why I have chosen that topic, and then a few miscellaneous tips for you for your essays and your interview. So to start with, let me share my screen. Can you guys see the screen? Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, I am Siddhant Chandra, and I did my BTech in civil engineering from IIT Trichy. I had joined Trichy in 2012, and I graduated in 2016, of course. And in my final year, I was confused, of course, as to what I wanted to do after my graduation. And yeah, so that's the thing, and so that's when I had started preparing for. I also started preparing for my CAT examination in my third year, and was also writing the GRE then. And all of that was because I did not know what really I wanted to do. I even had given my what was the exam on the test. So there's a test that we give in our third year for our placements. So I also sat for that, but I did not sit for placements. So yeah, and then I cleared CAT and I got into IIM Calcutta, and I also had an admit to Stanford, and that was a point of dilemma for me. So now Stanford for me there were several reasons why I chose to go to IIM Calcutta after IIT. And the first and the most important reason was that I wanted to explore something different. I had done too much of engineering, I felt, in my G days, and I wanted to see how studying something else, learning something else feels like. So yeah, that's why I joined IIM Calcutta primarily. There were of course many other reasons. And I had foregone my admit for that year for Stanford University. And around 7 to 8 months into my MBA at IIM Calcutta, while I was enjoying reading everything and studying so many different things and learning a lot, I think everything that I was learning there was very different and very new to me. So I was loving that and was giving me a lot of new perspective. But there was something which was not in the right place. That's what I felt then. So yeah, that was very, there was a gut feeling that there is something wrong, something out of place when I was in IIM Calcutta. And one of the questions that I asked was, why was I confused when I was in Trichy, and why did I choose IIM Calcutta, and what is it that I want from my education. So that was one, and the other dilemma was that since I had already, paid my fees for those 8 months, and there was there was like I studied for 8 months there. So in economics, if you or even otherwise, if you might have heard about something called sunk cost. Now, sunk cost is something where you know that you do where something has sunk, but you are still going on with the thing because you are realizing that, oh, I have spent so much time there, or so much money there, or so much effort there, so I should not let it go, even when you know that there is something wrong about it. So that's a bad thing in even in the economic sense. So I applied that concept here, and I was like, okay, fine. That is not. This is not what I want from my education. Uh, yeah. So the question for me then was that why is it that I had joined Bank Calcutta and what I really wanted from my education. And then I decided that, okay, this is not too much of a value add for me, because education for me is a process of adding value to my personality. And my experience there was not as much as I wanted. The value addition was not as much as I had hoped in my postgraduate degree. So I decided to go to Stanford, where I did my MS, and I did my triple specialization in structural mechanics, design thinking, and design research. So even there, my admit, or officially, I was an MS student in the civil and environmental engineering department at Stanford. So, but the thing about Stanford was that it really allowed me to explore everything. So I remember my first orientation speech by the dean of the School of Engineering there, and she had told that this is a place where you're free to explore everything, and even if you are in, like, it doesn't matter which department or which program or course you are in, you could easily approach any professor and or any researcher there and ask him to work with you, with or without remuneration. That is that's a different thing, and you would definitely be allowed to, because the culture there was very exploratory. So that was something really, really relieving for me, because I am a person, I like through the years I have discovered that I am a person who really likes to explore things, new things, and also go deeper into every new thing that I explore. So I was exploring it in my first year of Stanford, and of course, the coursework there is very heavy, and it's too hectic, and like there's a quarter system there, a term system, and we have like 10 weeks and stuff. So there isn't much time though. Where you can explore, especially in a master's degree. There is a lot of time in a bachelor's degree, but not in the master's degree. There's also a lot of time for PhDs. So I was trying to explore everything new there. So I had decided that I would not study, or I would not take courses at Stanford which have been taken by all my seniors or all the generations of MS civil engineering students before me. So I started venturing out of the department to see what more courses are there on offer, and which ones would I like to choose, of course, given the constraints that are there in the system. So that is how I started exploring new subjects there, and new departments, new courses, which were like very, very out of track from the conventional civil engineering degree. And that is when I came up. I had for a presentation, for a project presentation, and I came across a course on design thinking, and I found it very interesting in my first encounter with the subject there. And that is when I decided that, okay, let's start. I would try taking a course in design thinking and learn about it, because I had heard about it when I was in Trichy, but I had never, I did not know anything about it, but I just knew that it's like a process which helps you, like all the conventional definition of design thinking is all that I knew about it. So I started taking that. I took a course, a 9 month long course there on design thinking, and it was probably the best course and the best experience I have had in my education till now. There was so much learning that I decided to continue design thinking forward and study and get deeper into design. And also within design, there are different fields that we can explore. So I started, by the end of it, I was also doing some design research. So yeah, that's how I became a designer. So I call myself, I introduce myself as a designer to professionals, to people whom I collaborate with, and yeah, that's how I got into design thinking. That's how I started loving it, and that's how I also realized that this urge within me to keep exploring new things would every time be satisfied if I stay with it, like if I am designing things. Because within design also there is, it's very varied. So even policy making, something as policy making, or something as I don't know. It could be product design, service design, systems design, everything. So like as you engineers, you would know, like whichever department you guys are in, that you, of course, like many of you design, I know, structures or materials and stuff like that. That is one aspect of design, and there is another aspect of design which comes much before that stage in any industrial project. So that is what design thinking is about, the stage which is before what you're learning in Trichy now. So yeah, and I started seeing that that studying design thinking and learning design was fulfilling all my interests, and I was just very happy with studying it. So and I also had a few experiences which I'll share, which I'll talk about towards the end, which made me feel that yes, this is something that I would like to continue to, apart from a lot of other things that I'm doing anyway. So yeah, that's a brief background. Now, since I talked about my venture into design thinking, we'll now talk about the projects that I done in design and tell you briefly about a few of them. So I have worked with a few countries. Like I have been to these countries and worked there personally with the users and the people who use my products. Otherwise, I have collaborated with students across many other countries. Um, so, for example, if I share an experience of my project in the country of Ghana in Africa, so that project that was 6 month long project I was working on, and so the project there was with a for-profit organization in Ghana, and I was working on something called palm oil processing. So there's something called palm oil, and palm oil is a very important rural income source for women in Ghana. So women process palm oil from the palm fruits that they grow or fly, whatever. And then I was trying to see what problems exist in that entire value chain of uh, harvesting palm to selling palm oil. That whole value chain, which includes harvesting and then a lot of other processes, physical and economic processes. So yeah, and that's project where I was where my users were women, were rural women in Ghana. I was working for them, designing products or services. Like my aim was to design either a product or a service, of course, within the given time constraints. For and During my exploration phase of the project, which I cannot talk about now, it's too large. But there was a whole process where I had gone through everything about palm oil processing. So I knew that I had become an expert in everything from like producing palm fruits and then harvesting and growing palm like fruits to selling and making palm oil. I had even made palm oil myself with the women there to understand how the process looks like and all of those things. So that is also one of the things that I would like to say about design, is that it allowed me to work and learn very deeply about every project that I was working on. Because design projects are generally not like very short ones, if they cannot be very short ones. Uh, Most of them are not very short ones, I would say. So yeah, that's when I realized that that is also one of the things that the design was satisfying. It was allowing me to learn so many different things as a civil engineer who had gone there for in structural engineering and was specializing in structural mechanics. Side by side, had also gotten interested to had also learned about palm oil processing and so many things about palm fruits and palm oil like that. So that was very refreshing for me, and was a very big bonus point to stay in design, in the field of design. So the project there was my final project that came out. My product was a fireless cooker, which I had made through like my research and like my work had revealed to me that giving them like providing the women there with my design fireless cookers, which were DIY ones. Help them increase their incomes by, of course, reducing their costs, because I realized that they were using too much fuel boat and there was too much wastage and stuff like that. And that was that was a feeling, and I realized that okay, that is something that I want to be solving within that entire value chain, which would give which would give a measurable impact to the people there. So that is the actual process of design thinking that I am talking about. And the most important question there is the question why. Now, of course, the other countries there that you see here are Costa Rica and Germany and US and India, of course, and a few other countries also as well. So I'll talk about the question why, but I would stop sharing my screen for a few minutes, and I would look at you guys and the warm exercise. I'll tell you about it. Let me switch on the timer first. So the exercise is about. Okay, I'll not tell you what it is about first. So what you have to do here is you have to all get up first of all and walk around the room wherever you, of course, find free space. Mind you that there's gonna be some noise in the room for some time. Yeah, just keep walking. Just walk around as fast as you can and point your fingers at like every next second, point your finger to a thing that comes in front of you. It could be a wall, it could be a door, it could be a false ceiling, anything that you see there. And without thinking what it is, I want to see how, just see for yourself how reflexive you are in telling what that thing is. Yeah, so you have to get up, you have to start walking, and point at things and see what that thing is as fast as you can. And that will, we will do that for 30 seconds. Then I tell you how to proceed. So let me stop sharing my screen. Um, one second. Yes, okay. All of you just get up. And some, like, of course, don't have walking accidents here. There's for chairs there, but find places to walk. And like, your volume shouldn't be too low. I should be able to hear a lot of noise in the room. Just walk and point at things and say what they are.
LCD screen like the monitor.
Okay, so 30 seconds are up. I noticed a few of you walking in groups, so to just try not to walk in groups, walk alone. Okay, so you guys can stop for now, and we would do the second part of it. So second part of it is would also be two 30-minute sessions, two 30-second sessions, and um, okay, the first 30-second session is where you have to again walk. So don't sit. You can walk and point at things as you were pointing before, but you do not have to name that thing. You have to name something else, anything else, but not that thing. So if you point at the tube light, you would call it an apple or an orange or something like that. So point at those things, but don't call uh, uh, the thing what it truly is. You can also point at people like a person, a human being, but call him an animal or something. So yeah. One sec, let me put on the timer. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, cool. We are done. We're done with it, so you guys can take a seat. Um, and I will ask you a question. And let me see. This is an experiment that I wanted to see. So let's see what. Okay, so when you were doing the second exercise of pointing at things but not calling them what they are, how many of you found yourself pointing at things but calling, for example, if you like, but the same, like calling everything but in this, or most of the names but in the same category. Like if you started talking about fruits, or you started naming things as, you're just talking only about fruits. So you were naming them as orange, then apple, then pineapple. If you're talking about animals, and you were naming them as a dog, a cat, a tiger, and you were not switching categories. Did you guys realize anyone who was not switching categories? Or you were, okay, so be truthful. There's nothing wrong in that, of course. All of us have that tendency. So three of you were not switching categories. Okay, cool. So that was a demonstration of what we call as the anchoring bias, and that's a cognitive bias. And why I'm talking about it is because when I was Um, when I was looking at your mid-year checkpoint essays and also the topic for the society essay, it talks about you taking into account various aspects of the problem that you're talking about. So when we are doing that, it is very important that we are aware of our cognitive biases. Now, there are many different kinds of cognitive biases. Anchoring bias is one of them that we just saw. And when I had done the first time, like I had done this exercise at Stanford for the first time, my professors had done this with me, with us, in the class. I was also one of the people who had that bias. So it's very important to be aware of the bias. There's nothing wrong with having the bias, but you have to be aware of the bias so that uh, you can avoid taking wrong decisions because of the bias. So, and that relates to, if you look at the Jitesh Raj Scholarship website, it talks about awareness. What the scholarship is about? There are three words given. The first one is exploration. The second is awareness, and the third is perseverance. The third one you guys are showing with the entire process being so lengthy and stuff, but awareness is something which is really important. And being aware of your cognitive biases is one of the things of being self-aware, and one of the cognitive biases is anchoring bias that we just saw. That was just a warm-up exercise, nothing very serious. um, so let me start sharing my screen again. Sorry guys. Okay, so the next thing is this is a prompt. So I want to redesign a ladder. Okay, all you guys have seen a ladder. I want to use your pen and paper that you've gotten, and I give you 2 minutes for it. So I'll give you 2 minutes for it, and you have to design as many different kinds of ladders you can. And when I'm talking about design, it could be anything. It could be designing it with a different material, a different structure, a different, I don't know, anything. So you have to redesign it, and within 2 minutes, as many designs as possible, and then we'll go ahead with that. So your time starts now. 30 more seconds to go. Okay, time up. So, um, now I want you guys to, of course, change your designs in pairs. So whoever you're sitting beside, just share your sheet with them and describe your design to them. Yeah, explain your design to them, whatever you, if you guys can understand yourself, okay, otherwise you can explain. Okay. Have you guys been able to like share most of your designs with your not any one of you? Can you tell me something very interesting that you saw? Did you find something very interesting, some a very new design that you saw that was like mind, maybe not mind blowing, but yeah, something very new for you? Anyone can speak up. For your partner, of course, like you can praise the other person. Yeah, go ahead.
My partner, and I was not able to imagine this. Like he drew cascading ladders.
A cascading ladder. Okay, okay. Anyone else?
One in front of the other. Move it like that.
I see. Okay. Anyone else? No one else. Okay, cool. So, one sec. So now you see this picture here, right? Forgive me for the watermark, but yeah, you see this picture here. Now design something to solve this problem. You'll again have 2 minutes, and you can draw as many designs as you can, and design something for this problem. I'm not calling it a ladder, but I am telling that you have to solve this problem for the kids. So yeah, go ahead. One more minute. Cool. I'm up. Again, the same process. All of you have a partner, right? Just share your designs. Done? Discuss over? Okay, cool. So again, like, did you find something very novel? Any of you found something very interesting that you could not have thought of? No one this time. Okay, cool. So my question here is that when I had asked you to redesign a ladder, and when I showed you the picture, the second picture, the next one, how many of you had realized that or seen that the essential problem there was the same, right? A ladder is something which is used to go from one height to the other height. That's very basic of it. So I would say that the person who needs a ladder needs to get from one level to the other level. Uh, so I am not sure, but did you see any big difference between the designs that you did for a ladder and the design that you did for the second problem? Like, was there a noticeable change, or had you already tackled the problem earlier? Anyone can speak up. Yeah, go ahead.
Previously, I have designed a ladder.
Okay.
It had two parts.
Uh-huh.
The bottom part was the big one, and the upper part was the lever, and it could be moved horizontal.
Okay.
Like support at the bottom, and at the second part for the second position, the first two ladders were like steps, and the steps were connected to the bottom rack of the supermarket with the rod, and the bottom step had a wheel, and the upper part of the up top step has two more ladders, uh, like a box, so the children can go into the box and climb up. So if he can't reach if he is reaching the height, if it's like somewhat ahead, and the second guy can push it forward and.
Okay. Cool. Got it. Anyone else?
So I made a simple design which had a beneath a slide at the other end.
You would slide. Okay. The slide at the okay. Cool. Okay, that's
Sliding
good.
back to the second.
Right. Right.
Fix a ladder inside the showcases. Like in supermarkets, you have showcases, right?
Right.
Those are displayed, so we can fix a foldable ladder in the bottom. So if anyone wants, they can release and they can use it. They can fold it back and keep inside.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. So my point here was to emphasize that when I had asked you to rewrite a ladder, did you ask the question as to why does someone need a ladder in the first place? Right? So you need a ladder to go from one level to the other. So had you asked the same question before, for the ones who did not find, or who did find a noticeable change in both exercises, had you thought of the why question behind the need for a ladder, you would have probably not had that much of a noticeable change in your designs, probably. Uh, Also, anything that I speak in the session is my version of it, is my experience, and kind of it's not any gospel truth or something. It's my experience, my design experience until now that I'm sharing with you, and you can have your views on it. My point here was uh, that it is very, very important to ask the why question. Now, the reason is why is it very important to ask the why question, right? Um, so, based on my reading and my discussions with professors, well, here it is not visible in this example, but the most important thing, or the most, the most important revelation that a why question does for you is it starts, mm, it starts connecting you to the emotions of the person you are thinking about. Okay, and that is very important for any problem that you're solving, for your community essay, for your society essay, or for any actual project that you would be doing. You have empathy for the people you're doing for, and asking the why question based on my experience has helped me gain that empathy. That's point number one. Next is when I was reading a lot of your media checkpoint, like basically the media checkpoint. I don't know, I don't remember, but there were many places where I saw that there was a lot of scope for asking those why questions. And that is how you come with anything that is original. Okay, so if you really want to solve a problem originally and something in a very, or like in a very novel way, and that is a very important part of design thinking. Like if you go out and read about design thinking, let me clear this, if you go out and read about design thinking in, I don't know, articles or books and stuff, you would see a lot of the same material that is being circulated. There is like a 5-step process, and then there is empathizing and ideation, and then prototyping. But the most important thing there is again asking the why question. The why question helps you understand the need of the person that you're designing for. Really understand the need. But the caveat there is that many a times as a designer, when I have interviewed and field visits with people whom I did not know, whose language I did not know, I had translators who were translating for me, it was very difficult to ask the why questions directly, because if you really try and do your user research and ask them, like there are cases where you would find a very easy answer, but there are many places where you would see people getting defensive about answering the why questions. So if I ask a Canadian woman who's producing palm oil as to let me think, mm, why don't you so if I ask her as to why, okay, I don't know if you can understand that. Okay, forget that. Sorry for that. Yeah, the point here is that you would be able to connect to the person on a much deeper level if you start asking the why questions. You would be able to connect with the problem on a much deeper level if you ask the why questions. And I, for one, really want you in your essays to think about everything that you're writing. Ask questions on that, on everything that you're writing. Ask as many questions as you can, and as many why questions as you can. Why is something happening? Why is something not happening? Why is something happening like this? What are the different factors? Of course, you would have a lot of other questions coming in between as to how and what and where and when. But like from time to time try and get back to the why question, and definitely answer the why question at most of the stages. So yeah, that's one more thing that I wanted to share for any problem solving that you do in your life ahead, for your projects or for anything else, and for your essays as well. When you're writing, when you're thinking, when you're researching for an essay, ask those why questions and then research for them as to why something happens. Now I'll one second. Too much screen sharing has to happen. Um, okay. So we did this one. Now I will tell you a story. Not a story. It's a very brief outline of how the why question affects a big problem or I don't know, yeah, medium scale or whatever. I don't know what the scales are, but yeah, a very serious problem also, and why it is very important to ask those why questions. So I will talk about this. So in the 1990s, I think it was 1994, when Delhi was suffering from bubonic and pneumonia. Sorry, the word suffered from has been omitted in the slide. I'm just realizing that. So yeah, in the 1990s, Delhi had suffered from bubonic and pneumonic plague. Uh, so when the officials who were trying to solve the problem did their research, most of them had come up with solutions where, or come up with the fact of the revelation that there were a lot of slums that were here in Delhi, and that is why, because of all the dirt and the filth, and there were rats dwelling there, and that is why the bubonic plague happened. So the solution to that was, so that was the first step. Okay, like maybe the first step, that okay, there are lots of slums, there's a lot of filth, and that is where the plague is happening. So let's remove the filth. Okay, cool. That's one part of the solution. And everybody does that. Most of us do that. Many a times we try to jump to solutions without understanding the real problem. And that's the next one that I want to emphasize, is that to understand the real problem and bring an original insight or original personal insight into the problem, you have to go deeper into the problem. You have to sit on the problem for longer. And there will be questions you would not have answers for. There may be also questions which you may not be able to find answers for ever, like not forever, but yeah, for the like within the time constraints, of course. You have to deal with it. That's the whole thing that it is about. Like there is a lot of ambiguity in problem solving, in real life problem solving, and the earlier you start dealing with ambiguities, the better for you. So yeah, you would never have all the data and all the evidence for everything that you are testing. Okay, you have to of course trust yourself, but you don't have to forget getting deeper into the problem. So continuing the story, people said that okay, there's a lot of slum area and there's a lot of filth. So let's remove the filth and the slum areas, and the plague would never happen again. Cool. But when the problem was taken to anthropologists who were in Delhi and around, I also read, I remember that there's someone there, I don't know if the person is present here, but there's someone there who likes studying anthropology. May I know who that is? Okay, cool, great. So when anthropologists were trying to look at the problem, they asked again the same question, the why question. That why are there slums? Why are there so many slums in Delhi? Great. So because people are migrating to Delhi. Why are people migrating to Delhi? Because Delhi is more developed than the cities that they come from or the villages that they come from. So it is a problem. So you can now see the signs of a problem of inclusive development, right? There is not much, the inclusive development in the country is not as it should be. And there are a lot of disparities between people living in Delhi and people living in outskirts of Delhi or whatever, or in a village somewhere else in the country. So then they realized that, okay, so removing the slums is not a problem. If you remove the slums now, the slums would probably build up in the next 10 years or 15 years, and it did build up. There are still many slums. So then, of course, the problem has not been solved forever. The problem still exists. The issue here was that the problem had not been dealt with deeply enough. That's the thing that I'm trying to convey. That you have to go deep into the problem. So when the people asked why was the plague outbreak happening, they said because there's a lot of filth. Why is there a lot of filth? Because there are a lot of slums. Why are there and that's where they stopped, right? In that whole journey of asking questions, that's where they stopped and they said that okay, there are lots of slums, let's remove the slums. And plague outbreak would not happen. They did not want to go beyond. You have to go beyond. You have to ask why are there so many slums? Because people are migrating. Why are people migrating? Because there is not enough development in the places they live in. So then you decide, okay, this is a policy issue. This is an issue the government has to solve. And there are many state governments and the central government. There has to be a coordination in policy making. And then you would realize that primarily this is a policy issue that so many people were migrating to Delhi and did not have enough money to live in great or like even decent houses. They were living in slum areas, and filth was building up, and therefore the plague outbreak happened so badly. So yeah, the point here was that had people thought about it much deeper, they would have realized that this was a policy problem and not a problem of poor people in Delhi. It was not because, it was of course because slums existed, but then that was not the root cause of the problem. The root cause was yes. And based on again my experience in my projects, I have realized that many issues that you would come across in your for the society essay, many issues that you would come across would probably end at policy making, at the stage of policy making. It is great. It would be great to see if you guys can dig deeper and see and maybe talk about why does that policy making issue exist. I don't have an answer for that. So why I don't. Why is there not inclusive development enough in the country? So there's a policy problem. Now, why is there a policy problem? There can be many different issues and aspects to it, and that is what I will talk about next, which is policy psychology, where it talks to you about talking about the various aspects of it. Why has the question been framed that way? First of all, why do you want to know about various aspects of it? Because every daily problem has too many aspects to it, and to really get to the root cause of it and to solve the problem in a satisfactory, at least satisfactory and a novel manner, you would have to go through each aspect of it and then design a solution for that. For example, in my project that I talked about, my Ghana, there were issues of government interference, there were issues of NGO policy in the country, there were issues of the banking sector in Ghana, there were issues of water, issues of the electricity crisis, there were issues of road, like infrastructure problems, there were issues of land labor that was there, there were issues of money, economic issues were there. There are many issues that were associated with that value chain and that problem trying to solve. And until I had looked at every aspect of it, I would never be able to design a solution which is satisfactory enough for the person that I'm designing for, or the problem that I'm solving for. Because because you have not really understood the problem. Essentially, if you have not analyzed every aspect of it, you have not really understood the problem in the total sense. So yeah, that was the Delhi plague story that I want to talk about. That asking the why questions and get you deeper into every sentence and every analysis that you do is very important. And it's a difficult job to do. It's very tough, I know. You would have to do a lot of research, you have to do a lot of discussions. You will not find answers to many questions. It's okay. But you have to try doing that as much as you can. And you'll start getting better at it. So the next was the essay, I guess. Yeah, let me start sharing again. So yeah, that's over. So now let's talk about the for the society essay. So this is your problem statement. You all read it. There's something which has been underlined here that you can see. So there is the word trend or issue. Then there is original personal insight. Then there is impact, and then there is aspects. So one of the things that I found missing almost or rather every essay in the mid-year checkpoint was that most insights that were there were not original personal insights. And I told you, and I just explained to you how you can get to those original personal insights, right? So, for example, I told you the Delhi plane story. So the thing that to get to an original personal insight, which people had not thought of then when they were solving the problem, when the plague had happened, had occurred, or have not thought of it until now probably, was because the witness of the fact that it was not an original personal insight. It was something which was very shallow. It was something which all of us mostly do, which is not how you solve a problem. So one of the things that I had, and the most important thing probably that I had learned in design thinking when I was during my Stanford days was that I had to become comfortable with sitting on the problem for long enough. Because there were many times when I had said, okay, now I have found the problem, let's solve it. I have found this problem, okay. Yeah, that's the issue. For like, let's talk about women's safety, for example. I just came up with an example of someone who is working on a project on women's safety here in this lot. So even that is a very complex issue. Now if you try a solution that you want to work, but yeah, of course, like you would want your solution to work, right? But it would not work. Like there are many failures you would see in designing products that are there in the world, where the actual problem has not been enough. So yeah, that's one of the things that to get those original personal insights, you have to do that hard work of getting deeper into every problem that you are solving or trying to solve. The other words were impact. Now, what is impact? You have to understand what impact is. How would you define impact? For me, very simple term, impact would be either a change or an evolution. Right. And it could be, of course, a negative or a positive thing. So yeah, you have to be sure that okay, the problem that you're talking about has impact, which you have fared like done well on. So that's not a problem. That I'm just trying to say that is how you write any essay that you do. Any problem statement very careful. Many times in we also saw that the problem was not the wrong answer. So that was an issue because you have not read and you write it as a even when you like if you when you apply for your grad school in your fourth year, you read no fourth yeah fourth would be that most of the universities don't ask you to write an SOP. They ask you questions. Stanford asked me questions. There was no SOP that I had to write. Or there were questions and I had to write essays on those questions. So that is what the format is here as well. And in most scholarships also you would find out the same process. So read the question very carefully and understand every word of it and then start answering it. The next is aspects, the word aspects, which I found missing in a few of the essays, was that many aspects had not been covered. And with this point, I would like to add that when you're trying to write or think on those aspects, try to be very as creative as you can. Okay, try to think different. Uh, like you have prompts in the essay, right? You have words like psychological or economic or social, whatever. Now, what comes within social? Try some other different aspect of it. Look at it from any different angle that you can. If you don't understand how to look at it at different angle, then you can start force fitting you can start force fitting different subjects or different subject areas into the problem. So like there's a subject area of economics. So fit economics and see, is there an economic aspect to the problem? Is it impactful? Is it worth mentioning? If it is, go ahead. If it is not, fine. So psychology, so sociology, philosophy, anthropology, so many different things are there. Physics, chemistry, mathematical, I don't know, so many different things. So that's one of the tricks as to how you can talk about different aspects of it, of any problem. Um, Aspects was the word, original person insights was the word, and impact was the word. There was one more word, which was standard issue, which you probably understand. So, now if I tell you some more tips into how you should go ahead with for society essay, it would be to read and understand the problem statement very carefully, which I just demonstrated. I don't find any essay, especially, well, here it was, but in many essays, in many SOPs especially, the question had not been answered. So understand the problem statement before you are writing about it or trying to suggest a solution. And when you're suggesting a solution to a problem, even that has to satisfy the different aspects that you have looked when you are analyzing the problem. So the step is that when you have a problem, like let's talk about women's safety. Is there an economic aspect to it? Is there a social aspect to it? Is there a psychological aspect to it? Is there a philosophical aspect to it? All those issues. Then, when you are trying to, of course, now after you have analyzed every aspect of it, you have to choose one aspect or two aspects and then develop a solution for that aspect of it. Or I don't think there is any solution which can cater to all the aspects of any problem based on my experience. But of course, you can pull up different aspects and solve and give solutions. So when you are choosing that aspect, you must mention what are the weaknesses of your solution. Okay, that why? Because that shows your inherent ability, not ability, your inculcated ability, and I think you should inculcate that ability to self-critique yourself. Anything that you write, anything that you design, any project that you're working on, you should be your best critique and the harshest critique. Okay, so that's the point that I want to say here. The next is when you're trying to solve or write something for just wanted to like give you a starting point for your exploration. So choose a starting point, and it could be anything. It could either be something very broad, or it could be something very niche. It could be an impact, or it could also be a trend that you are seeing. So there are two different ways that you can go about it. You can either identify the different trends and then get to the impact, or you can identify the impact and then get to the different trends that that impact is setting. So that's a very linear way of saying it, but yeah, that kind of fits this situation. So yeah, to choose a starting point for your expectation, you could choose anything. You could look at the different sustainable development goals, millennium development goals, or any such thing, or you can choose anything of your own choices. This is an example that's how you do it. So first, you understand the problem statement that is given, then you choose a starting point for your explanation. The next is you start listing down as many aspects of the problem as you can see. Okay, so let us talk about I don't know, something very okay. Again, yeah, let's talk about mm, mm, somebody suggest any issue that you want to talk about. I have no idea. Just tell me anything. Shout out. Anyone? Any social issue or for the society as a topic that you want to start talking about? No one can talk about. Okay, why is everyone social? Okay, it's okay. So let's talk about energy security, for example. So let me choose a sustainable development goal that we have to arrest, I don't know, temperature rise to 1.5 degrees C. Yeah, I would call, which is something related to energy security. So when I'm talking about energy security, start looking at the various aspects of it, as I told you, and list the aspects of the problem. And then you have to do a lot of research on this. So I found when I was doing your essays that there had not been like too much research has not gone in because of course next to the previous part of our session where I said that you have to get into the problem. So the more deeper you get, the more you have to research. And how so the best part to do a research is to start with the history of the problem. So definitely look at the history of any aspect of any problem that you're trying to solve. And then you try to project and look at most recent research that's happening in the labs all around the world, and how people are trying to, for example, just say climate change. So how are the different universities and labs and everyone trying to tackle climate change or all that stuff. So yeah, then you can go into future. You would find something where you would really see so many different things and aspects there that you can talk about. So that's one of the tips that I can give you for the society essay. So yeah, I have already talked about asking people questions, but yeah, so you don't have to judge any question, which is I think, well, again, which was a problem with me, which I had realized when I was learning this thing, that there are many times when we self-censor our own questions, even when there is no one listening to it, or even when we are not discussing. There are a lot of times when we say that, okay, this is a very obvious question, why should I look at it? Don't judge any question that comes to your mind. There is no stupid question, there is no simple or hard question. Every question is there on its own merit. Find an answer to that question. It could be a very simple question, you would find answer. It's a very easy. If it's a hard question, you would find difficult, finding it difficult. So yeah, don't judge any question that you're trying to ask. And yeah, don't self-censor your question. And again, emphasize on the whys, as I told you, that you have to keep asking, you have to keep redirecting yourself to asking the why questions at various stages when you are getting into a problem. So now we move on to the second last section of the session, where I would introduce you to this concept of flow. I'm not sure how many have heard of this psychologist. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He's a European psychologist, sorry, European Europe, like origin was European. So he had developed this concept of flow, and I cannot tell you everything about it because I myself don't know about it, like everything about it. This is something that I had studied about and experienced while I was at Stanford, and I had been taught about this. So I wanted to share it with you guys. So here, the concept of flow is. I'll come back to this right again, but I want you guys to this paragraph here that you see, these few sentences. Yeah. So this is again a slide from Professor Csikszentmihalyi's Mihai's lecture, where he talked about the concept of creative flow or flow while composing music. And you look at the word, there's a word called ecstatic. There is the word of, or there's this phrase which is, you all don't exist. And I don't know. Yeah, you are devoid. Your hands are seem devoid of yourself. All these they seem very philosophical, right? But this is a psychological theory that has been propounded by Csikszentmihalyi, and this is something that I want you guys to explore, and that is the third aspect that I wanted to introduce. Where because you see, if you look at the mission statement of the scholarship, so it said that the mission is to nudge students towards clarity about their strengths and right. So if you do this, if you learn about this concept, I would tell you an exercise that you can go ahead and do, which will probably set you on a path to explore more about your strengths and what interests you and your passion. So here you see here on the top right corner that the flow sector is there, and the axes are challenges and abilities. So anything that we do, or like any project that we're doing or any creative thing that we work on, there is a challenge. Of course, there's a creative challenge, and then there are abilities that we have created within ourselves. Based on the levels of the challenge and the abilities, this is a very apt diagram that you can analyze and see where flow exists. So flow is a situation which exists when you are high on your abilities to be doing something, and the challenge is also enough and also good enough. So if you're doing something which is not very challenging and you have too much of ability, you would either feel bored or you would be relaxed, right? And you can look at the other side. Yeah. So that is how Csikszentmihalyi had mapped the different emotions that we go through, and he called this emotion as emotion of flow, the concept of flow or creative flow, whatever you want. So yeah, and this is how, like a very brief description of what flow is. But more important is to understand what constitutes this concept. So there are 6 different things that I want you guys to remember when you are trying to explore yourself, and that is the 6 pointers. You can call them as a bullet points or a checklist, which you have to check before calling yourself. That you have before telling that you have experienced creative flow. I'm not sure if you guys have, which I'll tell you how. If you guys have, I'll initiate you to that exercise. Yeah, this is a very important thing and a very beautiful concept where it talks about the merging of action and awareness. So for example, if you look at a very good orchestra, I don't know, symphony orchestra, or something, or you look at a very skilled basketball or football or team, you would see that there is extreme merger of action and awareness. It is like everything that they do, they feel that it's happening automatically because they are like very high on awareness and they have the abilities to act according to the changing situation. This is very also very helpful. You find this uh, this trait in improvisational theater also. So yeah, also next thing is that whenever you are in a state of flow and you want to identify if you were in a state of flow or if you have been in it or not, these are the pointers. The first was motion fractional awareness. The next was intense and focused concentration on that moment, and that is where you would, if I go back to the slide, and you would see that there is very it's temporarily very numbing, mind bending, that you don't experience doing by, and that is what it means, that you're so focused and so concentrated on the present moment that you just don't have your bandwidth to gain any other piece of information about your state of well-being or your body or anything about that. So on an average, our brain can process 110 bits of information per second. Um, and a person, and like if I'm talking to you and if you want to understand me, you would on an average have to use 60 bits of information, just 60 bits of information, and that is the reason why it's very difficult to listen to two people or more than two people at a time, because it exceeds from 110. So when you are in a state of flow, the number of bits of information that activity that you are doing is consuming is so huge that you have very little amount of bandwidth left in your mental capacity to be able to realize what is happening with your body or with your mind or how are you feeling, all of those things, and that is uh, an indicator of being in the concept of being in the state of flow, which I just talked about. So yeah, the loss of reflective self-consciousness. Then there is a sense of personal control or agency, which comes through, if you look at this chart again, you would see that there is an axis which talks about abilities. So that is what gives you a sense of this personal control or agency over the situation. Again, any creative activity, especially team activities, would would be a very good place to observe at least this phenomenon. And there's a distortion of temporal experience that we talked about. And the most important thing and the most easiest or the easiest indicator of you having been in creative, though it might be misleading at times, is that after you are done with that activity, you feel immensely happy. You do not know why you are happy because you were just working on something, but once you have finished doing that, you start feeling extremely happy, and you feel that there is no reason for you to you're tired and happy because you were so engrossed in it that you're tired, but once you're done with it, you feel like extremely happy, ecstatically happy. And that is a very easy indicator of for you to have understood that you have gone through that the work that you're doing was in a flow state or not. So yeah, this was the concept, like the very brief about the concept. You can also read the book on flow if you want to, Jason Lehigh's book. But yeah, this is the most important that is essential for you for now. And this is not that we do now, but I would want you to start thinking about it and initiate yourself. So whenever you're going to the or walking or sleeping or trying to sleep and doing anything else, try to think for these situations that have come in your life before. So what I want to do is whenever in your free time or whenever you have time, think of those moments. If there may not be moments, there could also be time periods like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, where you work. At the end of it, you are very, very happy, extremely happy. Okay, so that's the first sign that you might have been in a state of flow. And then try to see if any of these aspects also satisfy that state or not. And once you've done that, you have known that you were in the state of flow. So that's step number one. Okay, even that, just doing that is also very, very beneficial. Okay, for your own self awareness, trying to understand who you are in creative flow and when you are not. And maybe you might be able to see a trend where you see that you are creative at times or maybe regularly or regular intervals and stuff like that. So yeah, that's something that you can look into. And then the next is the zone of genius concept. So zone of genius concept is very, very tightly related to this flow, the concept of flow, where it talks about when you have listed down three such times when you have discovered that you were in a state of flow, then you can talk, you discuss with, and tell them everything about you or about that environment when you were in that state of flow. Okay, so for example, you realize that you were in a state of flow by, like, studying something or reading something, or cooking something, I don't know, something of that sort. Once you have realized that, for the zone of genius exercise, you should try to recall as many details about that situation as you can, from the smallest to the largest details. And then, um, once you've done that for a few such occasions, you realize when you talk to different people, you would start seeing trends that are emerging. You would start seeing places or trends or something common in all those situations. And uh, commonality or that common underlying thing would probably be genius, which helps you get into the state of creative flow. And state of creative flow is probably the best state to be in while you're working, because there's like extremely high quality work that comes out of it when you are done with that state. So yeah, this is the explanation for the exercise, for your own exercise, that I would advise you to do whenever you're free. And if you have any doubts, you can write back to me on my email. And the last section of it is the miscellaneous tips. And these are based on, I don't know, my own musings that I wanted to share with you, and also based on my reviews of media checkpoint essays that, like, when we review the essay during the media checkpoint. So the first tip is that when I was reading your essays, there were many points where, I don't know, many points where I would have commented that how can you say so, or how do you know? You have assumed something and you have like you have a hypothesis, but you have to get it verified by many people. So yeah, because when you get it verified, because since it is an assumption, you cannot have evidence for it, or an hypothesis, you cannot have evidence for it, but you would at least be confident enough that your assumption is almost in place. It is not very out of place. So that's one tip for your essays, for any essay that you're writing, that if you feel that you're trying to assume something, trying to hypothesize something, you have to get it verified by many people or by many, yeah. And it will, anyone whom you want to discuss it with is fine. Once. Yeah, the next is challenge yourself in asking questions. I already told you that you have to challenge, you have to be your own self-critic when you're asking questions. So ask as many questions on everything that you write, and allow yourself to be asked questions. There is no shame in allowing yourself to be asked questions and being vulnerable. So whenever you're writing something, just get it reviewed by people and get it logically analyzed by people. And yeah, that's the next step. This will help you make your essay very rigorous. This I have already talked about, that you have to sit on the problem for sufficient time before jumping onto solutions. Don't jump onto solutions. Very, very important. On the solutions before you have enough confidence that you identified and analyzed the problem well enough. The next is that you have to start getting accustomed with ambiguities and learn to deal with them. Uh, Now you would have to just start getting very comfortable with these ambiguous situations. When you do not know an answer, you probably cannot find an answer, or you cannot include everything in your essay also maybe and stuff like that. The many things which is very we are gray in this analysis process. So the ambiguities is something you have to deal with, and design is one of the fields where it's like you have to deal with many ambiguous situations. The fifth point is that you have to relate your essay to yourself, because this is to show that you really care for the problem. So relate yourself to the essay. If you cannot, it's okay. But if the judges can see that in your essay, you would realize, or it would be a good, I don't know, good point that you have. Because it's a double bonus, because one, that you are enough, your self-awareness is at enough level to that you have been able to relate yourself or that trait of yourself or anything to this interesting problem that you're trying to solve. So this connection, the connection of your self-awareness with the problem that you're trying to talk about, is what this point would observe, is that you try to relate your essay to yourself. And the last one is that yourself, whenever you're writing anything, you can state your opinion, but you may not, and you probably will not have complete evidence for anything that you write, or for many things that you write. That is what beauty is about. But you have to have trust in yourself, and there are ways to, of course, gain that enough trust in yourself. And that's it, I guess. So the best and most important thing is that you should not forget to have fun in the process. So I don't know, many of you guys, I don't remember, but some of you guys do theater, some of you guys are interested in anthropology, and I don't know, it was very varied. So I really loved going through your essays and seeing so much of interest and so much of varied talent. So probably if you're doing theater, like draw some lessons from your theater, I don't know, skills or your performances, and put that into your essay. That is how you relate it to yourself. So that's the whole point. That from your own self-awareness, you have to start connecting it to the topics that you are writing about in the essay. Anything, it could be any medium. It's not just the essay. You could relate your essay to yourself in two different ways, and all of those essays can be related to yourself. So that's it, guys. Thank you.